Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast. I'm the executive editor, Chris Hatfield, here in Sox Prospects, Mid-Atlantic and our nation's capital. I'm joined by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. It has been a little bit of a busy day, Ian. Some things happened.
Yeah, it's Dave Dombrowski doesn't joke around.
No, he really doesn't.
It's been quite the day.
Oh my God! This podcast is being fueled by Tidings, a Belgian holiday beer from Port City Brewing in Alexandria, because I needed a beer when I came home because of all this nonsense.
It's being fueled on my end by water from my refrigerator. Nice. 6 ice cubes, like it nice and cold.
That's 6.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that later when we have more time.
It was too many. I usually go for 4, but what can you do? Sometimes you push down the thing too long, and I don't like wasting ice cubes.
No, well, we're wasting time right now.
We got a lot to talk about, so yeah.
Yeah, so it is, today is Tuesday, December the 6th. We're putting out an emergency podcast, Sound the Alarm. The Red Sox went crazy today. Day 2 of the winter meetings, I guess 2.5. I guess things kind of get started on Sunday, but 2.5 or 3, depending on how you count. Making 2 trades, and of course, most importantly, in going out and signing first baseman Mitch Moreland, which was the one item that happened today that we actually had some notice of coming into the day. Was the last one that happened, and that they went and signed Mitch Moreland to play first base. I'm seeing first base /DH, but I don't understand what scenario a healthy Mitch Moreland would DH with Hanley Ramirez playing first base. That just doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, so at any rate,
you're kind of burying the lead right now.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Yes, that was jokingly burying the lead. It's been a busy day. The Red Sox traded 4 of their top 9 prospects entering the day, and a pair of trades acquiring Milwaukee relief pitcher Tyler Thornburg, and most importantly, Chicago White Sox ace Chris Sale in the first time I can remember of the white whale of a Red Sox trade proposal actually being dealt. For the longest time, it was Felix Hernandez, then it was Giancarlo Stanton. But the Chris Sale trade actually happened. So that was the second of the 2 trades. And in that deal, the Red Sox dealt top prospect infielder Yoan Moncada, arguable top pitching prospect Michael Kopech, outfielder Luis Alexander Basabe, and relief pitcher Victor Diaz for Sale. And earlier in the day, the Red Sox acquired Thornburg from the Brewers in exchange for infield/utility prospect Mauricio Dubon. Probably the headliner in the deal was Travis Shaw, Major League infielder, and a minor league pitcher, spent the year with the Spinners as a starter, probable future reliever Josh Pennington. So a lot to digest from today alone, Ian. And this is the crazy thing is, just so everyone knows, this today and on the podcast, we're really only going to deal with the trades that happened today. The crazy thing is, since the last episode of the podcast, we have a new collective bargaining agreement. Thursday is the Rule 5 draft. Maybe we'll mention it briefly at the end. But we're not going to get into the CBA. We're not really going to get into anything else going on, but except for this craziness. So where do we even start, Ian? I guess just do we start at the 10,000-foot level? Your thoughts on these deals, how they look for the Red Sox, what dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. What's happening here?
Yeah, well, the Red Sox are better now than they were yesterday. I mean, I think we can safely say that. But I think, everyone, when Dombrowski came along and he made the Kimbrel trade and then the Pomeranz trade, and, everyone kind of hinted that his MO is he's a win now guy. He prospects are currency, and he doesn't become attached to prospects. He's going to go out. If he sees he can upgrade the big league club with a prospect, doesn't matter how good they are, or if it's an overpay, he's going to go get his guy. And we saw that today again. And, now it's kind of what everyone kind of was concerned about when he entered the system. He's traded, I think you said it, 20 prospects in the last year?
Well, 20 players. This is by my count, in trades that are for players. So this doesn't count the
Like Michael Martinez and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, Martinez was actually a waiver
Oh,
trade, I
okay.
think, or something. I just did a control F for trade
Yeah.
on our transaction pages for the past 2 years, and so this doesn't count. For example, Garen Cicchini and Zach Kapstein were traded for like cash considerations.
Yeah.
I think Cicchini after he was DFA'd.
Yeah.
So not counting those, he's traded 20 players. They're not all prospects because that number includes Wade Miley and Alejandro Daza,
Yeah.
but it's mostly prospects and young players if you want to include Shaw in that number. I think it's 17 players who qualified as prospects at the time / still, because none of them have really graduated, although a couple have made their major league debuts in Manuel Margot and Carlos Asuaje. So that's a lot of guys, man. In a year and a half, he's traded 20 players for 10. But the thing is, he got. I have to say this: when he came in and everyone was saying, "Oh no, he's going to trade all of the prospects," I kind of pushed back against that. I was wrong. He did exactly that. There's no talking around.
Yeah, no, he traded. I mean, I was just trying to bring up the rankings from the end of last, what would that have been? The beginning of last season? Would that have been the right one to look at? With
Probably
Margot,
mid-season, because he hadn't taken over till mid-season
you're right.
last year.
He came in, so yeah.
He came in just before the trade deadline, or before the waiver trade deadline, whenever, because the Diaz deal was his first trade.
You're right. So looking at the October 12th, 2015 rankings, so end of season last year. Number 1 prospect, Moncada, traded. Number 3 prospect, Espinoza, traded. Number 4 prospect, Margot, traded. Number 6 prospect, Guerra, traded. Number 7, traded, was Kopech. Number 12, Basabe, traded. 13, Logan Allen, traded. 15, Wendell Rijo, traded. 18, Mauricio Dubon, traded. So what's that, 9? And Pat Light. So 10 out of the 20 prospects from last year's top 20 are gone. So the end of season top 20 from last year, half the prospects have been traded in just over a year, that's crazy to think about.
That's unbelievable. That's
1, 2. Let me just make sure my math's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Good for you for remembering Rijo, by the way.
8, 9. Yeah, it is 10. It's 10 out of the 20 prospects from October 12th, 2015 Sox prospects rate.
Since this is where we're going, I was going to come to this at the end, but I mean, what would your ranking of the players that Dave Dombrowski has traded look like? Obviously, you've got Moncada at the top.
Yeah.
Right? I go Espinoza next.
I would too, because I like Espinoza more than Kopech.
Yep. Well, 3 is interesting. Do you go Kopech or do you go Margot? I would go Margot.
I'd probably still go Margot, but it's close.
It is close. I like them both.
Close.
They're both top 50 prospects.
Yeah, and then I do Kopech 4.
Yeah. After that, there's a drop off.
Yeah, I would probably go Basabe 5.
I would as Alexander Basabe. You have to specify again.
Oh right, yeah, Alexander Basabe 5.
Yep.
This might be a fun article to write, actually.
Yeah, we probably should.
We should edit this out and just write this article.
No. We'll talk about it and we'll work it out. I go Basabe 5. Yep.
Yeah. 6, I take Dubon.
For me too. Yep.
7, Guerra.
Nope. I would not go. He was terrible this year. Guerra was not good.
Actually, I'd probably take Logan Allen 7.
I would at this point, I would probably go Asuaje over Allen, but it's close.
Yeah.
Asuaje had that good of a year, and he's in the
he's not even in the top 20. So
he's going to be a major leaguer. Is Asuaje? I think he's very clearly past Guerra, which is kind of crazy. But
I mean, we said this when Guerra was traded, though.
Right.
I was not convinced at all that he could hit, and we saw he can't hit.
The thing with Allen that concerns me, and admittedly, this is this being an emergency podcast, I couldn't really look it up. I didn't realize Allen missed 2 months this year.
That's not good if you're a pitcher.
I'm not sure what the injury was, but he rehabbed and got back up to low A where he was. But either Allen or Asuaje, I think those are your 7 and 8.
Yeah,
in some order, followed by Guerra.
The other Basabe is probably right there too.
10. Yep, I've got Guerra and then Alejandro Basabe.
Yeah,
but Basabe's in that kind of group of 4 with Asuaje, Allen, and Guerra.
But yeah, I mean, it just shows that they traded a lot, but I got to give Dombrowski credit for a few things. He held to his principles and he didn't touch the major league roster, which, you can say what you want, but that's impressive. The fact that he was able to get Chris Sale without dealing any of the, I mean, obviously Bogarts, Betts, and Benintendi, Bogarts and Betts weren't going to be traded, I don't think, for anything. But that he was able to hold firm and hold on to Benintendi, Bradley, and Swihart, I think is pretty impressive.
And Rodriguez, too.
We'll
talk about in a minute.
Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. And I like holding on to Devers. I mean, we talked about it on the last podcast, and I mean, we should probably talk about the guys they traded first before we get into the impact. But I like that they kept Devers. So, yeah. But, I guess, should we start with the Sale trade, since that's the bigger one?
Yeah, let's start. I mean, just to me, let's start with Sale. And, the kind of when you look at what they gave up, right? To me, maybe this isn't appropriate, but the analog was, I remember when Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston broke up.
Where's this going?
And the joke was he better have broken up with her to get with Angelina Jolie.
Okay.
To me, trading Moncada, if you had told me today, Chris, today the Red Sox are going to trade Yoan Moncada, my response would probably have been they better be getting Chris Sale.
Yeah. I mean, I think the list of players you would trade Yoan Moncada for is very small, and Chris Sale is someone who was on that list for me.
Comfortably.
And I think I do, I mean, not to bring this back to the CBA, but I do think the new CBA played a big role in this, because the new spending restrictions that basically limit with basically if you're over the luxury tax, you have to give up a ton of stuff if you want to sign guys. I think that Sale's contract under those new rules is insane. It's like 3 years. What is it, like 3 years, $30 million or something?
Under the CBT, he only counts for like $6 million.
Exactly, but he's signed for 3 more years.
Whereas did Kotz already move him to the Red Sox?
I think it's 338. I want to say, but I'm not sure.
Well, it's not what's remaining; it's the whole deal.
Yeah, no, but was it?
It's
Okay,
532.5.
That's insane. Yeah, and he's got 3 years left.
So he counts for $6.5 million against the
which is huge because they're right up against it.
Yeah,
and we're seeing
what they're actually paying him. They're paying him $12 million this year, $12.5 million on a club option next year, and $13.5 million on a club option in 2019.
It's like 339. Yeah,
the club option, the 2019 option increases if he wins a Cy Young in the next 2 years.
I'm sure they'd be happy to pay that,
or has a second or third finish in the Cy Young vote.
Yeah,
whatever. Who cares? The highest it can go is $16 million, and guess what? He's still going to be worth it.
But that's what I was going to say. We look at the money that last year David Price got, Zach Greinke got. Free agent starters are just getting paid, and in order to acquire someone of Sale's caliber, Sale or Price, who would you take? I think you take Sale, right?
Yeah, and by the way,
so
Clay Buchholz is going to make more this year than Chris Sale.
There you go. That's a go. Yeah, Buchholz just they picked up his option. It was $14 million or $13 million.
13 and a half.
So I think that the CBA definitely played into a part of it and was kind of part of the driving force. But
Rick Porcello is going to make $7 million more than Chris Sale this year.
That's insane.
That's a good line. That's a good starting infield.
There's a Florida Gulf Coast education joke to be made that I'm not going to make here.
No.
But no. But so I mean, you were going to always have to give something to get something.
Yeah.
And it's weird that they gave up a ton of talent, but this is a risky package if you're the White Sox.
Yes.
They didn't get any sure things here. And I think this is I think all 4 of these guys they got are big leaguers, but they all have warts and question marks that, could limit their upside if things don't work out. I mean, and obviously, in a couple years hindsight, this trade could look terrible if Moncada's an all-star, Kopech's an ace, or a number 2 starter, Basabe is a 5-tool center fielder, and Victor Diaz is a closer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to look bad. But right now, there's no sure things on any of those guys. All of them have some risk attached. So, if you're able to get an ace starter in this day and age with how valuable pitching is, who, there might be some long-term health questions given his delivery, but since he's been in the big leagues, has been healthy and has been, very, very good. Without giving up anything off your major league roster, I mean, I think you have to make that trade. So
Yeah, I mean, if you told me entering the day that Michael Kopech would be the second piece of the Sale trade and not the third piece, I would have taken that in a heartbeat.
well, that's what I think. I believe it was alluded to on Twitter. I can't remember who mentioned that basically the White Sox finally came down on their asking price. And I know we've talked about this before, that we heard some of their asking price, and Kopech was the third piece in the trades I heard from the regular season.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that was like the first piece basically came off the table. So, which
Yeah,
was obviously
I
one of
made
the
a
big
note to
things.
yeah, I made a note to myself that Dombrowski's MO, to me at least as an outsider looking in without any inside information, has been see asset, acquire asset. Right? Like identify I want one of either Chapman or Kimbrel and I am going to go get that asset.
Yeah.
Or what happened at the deadline. I mean, like I need an eighth inning reliever. I'm going to go get Ziegler and pay what I need. I need a starting pitcher. I'm going to go acquire. I'm going to start at the top.
Yeah.
I'm going to start at the top and work my way down and get one. Right.
Yeah.
Sale, it does seem like he slow played it and waited the White Sox out.
And I mean, I think it was Buster Olney alluded to that around the game. They basically said that there was no one close to the Red Sox in terms of this package. And I mean, that probably is true, but at the end of the day, you do what Dombrowski's MO is you do what you need to do to get the deal done. And he's not going to haggle over a fourth piece. Like we've talked about in the past, so that was something like, Charrington seemed to do pretty well in trades where he wasn't going to give up anything of extra value. Dombrowski doesn't seem like he's going to be haggling if he has to include someone like Victor Diaz or Basabe. He's just going to get the deal done.
Right.
And,
right.
Maybe it's a slight overpay, but at the end of the day, the guys.
I don't think it's an overpay.
I really don't either. That's the guys they included. I mean, Basabe was in Greenville. He's 20. He's going to be. He has to be added to the Rule 5 or to the 40-man roster next year.
And that's another thing that I
noticed.
Close
to big league ready.
I think Basabe, Dubon, and Kopech all needed to be added next year, and we were alluding to this before. Let me see if we updated that page yet. But they did kind of. Sorry, the microwave in the background. But we alluded to this on a previous episode of the podcast. But next year, you did have kind of a Rule 5 crunch coming where you had to
Devers had to be added too.
Basabe. Let's see, Devers, Dubon. Wow, Darwin's and Hernandez. Interesting. Nick Longy. Going through here, there were a few more. I want to say Chandler Shepard, but in theory he comes up this year. Oh, Sam Travis was the
Sam Travis.
So, you've got a decent number of guys who you need to add next year. Who knows what the roster looks like? Yeah, I mean, then there's the fringy guys, right, that could get their way on. Jalen Beeks, Jake Cosart.
Yeah.
You're telling me Jake Cosart couldn't get popped in Rule 5?
Oh, definitely. He's exactly. Yeah.
He's like Rule 5 prototype, basically.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting year. I think the fact that they were able to, trade in Basabe, Dubon, and Kopech. Oh, no, Kopech didn't need to get added next year. Interesting.
Oh, yeah, Kopech's the year after because he's the same year as Chavis, because he's a high school guy.
Right, okay. But at least in those two, I mean, those are two guys that they were, in theory, going to need to add. So, that's intriguing to me.
Well, and I think, too, it's like, you look at with Moncada. So he's not going to play second base for the Red Sox. We knew that this year. They were moving him to third base. And this was getting to the Devers point I mentioned earlier. We talked about in the last podcast. Moncada's not as good a defensive third baseman as Devers is.
No.
And Devers is a better hitter, a hit tool, just pure hit tool. I mean, I think Moncada has more upside, but Devers has a better hit tool than Moncada.
Yep.
And I think the power potential is similar.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Devers kind of gets lost in the shuffle in the sense that they could have had that issue. Now it's not an issue anymore, but they still have a third baseman in the future.
Well, that's the logjam we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
With Moncada, Devers, and the outfielders.
Exactly. So
now
it's
going to play all of them, and I think that works itself out.
Because Devers is now the third baseman of the future. You've got your three outfielders of the future, all locked up for 3, 4, 5 years at least each.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got Bogarts locked up long term. You've got Pedroia locked up long term. You've got the catchers locked up long term.
Well, and that's honestly, I think maybe this is kind of jumping around a little bit, but I think you and I both agree that this is probably the quote worst the system has been, especially once you start looking from the May ranking, right? the May ranking, Andrew Benintendi is going to graduate in April.
Yeah.
He's only like 30 at bat. So the only reason he didn't graduate already is because of his ankle injury. Devers will be your number 1 prospect.
Yep.
Jason Groom will be your number 2 prospect.
Yep.
After that, Sam Travis?
Sam Travis or Bobby Dahlbeck.
Bobby Dahlbeck?
Yeah, it's not
Brian
good.
Johnson, if he like figures stuff out early and is dominant, is like,
the
shoving
system
in Pawtucket.
The system has no depth. I mean,
No,
there's.
I mean, the top 3 you're going into next season with in Benintendi, Devers, and Groom. Considering the number of plays, like we said, 10 of the top 20 at the end of last season.
Which doesn't include Asuaje, Alejandro Basabe, and a few other guys.
Yeah, 2 guys that would have been, I think, in this system, top 10 prospects. Or not,
Yes.
entering today.
No, they would have been top 10 prospects, yeah.
Right. To have that top 3 still,
it's impressive.
Is impressive.
Yeah. But I think this is what we're seeing, though, is that, they have that top 3, but the pitfalls or the struggles they've had in the draft and the lack of international guys the last 2 years is going to catch up with them at some point, and we're going to start seeing that next year.
Well, and that's the other
because
thing.
There's just no depth.
They can't trade anybody else.
They can, but they have no depth. They can basically.
But that's why it's important, too, that everybody they've traded for, with the exception of Ziegler, I think, or of consequence, I mean, Aaron Hill, Ziegler, sorry.
Yeah.
Again, I guess Aaron Hill was a free agent, too. But
yeah.
Everyone else has been under control for multiple years, and that's by design.
Yeah. And, and they have to because they don't have anyone coming to replace those positions now.
Nope.
There's no, with Kopech gone, there's no starting pitching help in the upper minors coming that has upside above like a number 5 starter. The only guys in the high minors right now are it's Brian Johnson, Henry Owens, and Rowanus Elias.
Well, Elias is out of options, so.
Okay. But yeah, so it's Johnson and Haley, so just more left-handers, which I'm sure we'll talk about eventually, that they are very left-handed now. So there's no right-handed starters. There's not a single guy I would project as a right-handed starter above Salem right now. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
There's only one guy in the system who I would even consider, maybe 2, who I would consider projecting as a right-handed starting pitching. Raudes and Schwarian, maybe.
I mean, we'll see what happens with Lakins when he comes back.
But what I mean is, like, comfortably,
I'm not convinced he was healthy. But I mean, he still could be a reliever, sure.
They don't have any depth anymore. But I mean, that's the price you pay. When they have gone from one of the deepest systems to their top 3 probably rivals almost every other organization's.
Yeah, I'll put that up there with most organizations, sure.
But after that, it's where you see this, like the gap between 3 now and 4. I don't think has ever been bigger.
Yeah. Oh goodness, no.
Like
gracious.
it is like the Grand Canyon is the difference between 3 and 4. So.
By the way, speaking of Moncada, apparently the White Sox, Rick Hahn, their GM, said that they view him as an up-the-middle player. So apparently he's going to move back to second base, which I think makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, because his bat at second base is special.
The athleticism of a middle infield of Tim Anderson and Yoan Moncada. It's
crazy.
That's 100 steals.
And the lack of plate discipline, it's also 300 strikeouts. But
I don't say lack of plate discipline. I mean that's Anderson.
True.
I mean
Tim Anderson
will walk.
Okay, the strikeouts. It's 300 strikeouts.
Yeah, it's the strikeouts that I would quibble with the lack of discipline.
I mean, I talked about it in the write-up that it's it's not so much that he doesn't have plate discipline. It's that he's too passive at times and he gets himself behind in the count, and then he just struggles with breaking balls and he's toast.
It's passive / pitch recognition.
Yeah. Once he gets to 0-2, once he gets like 2 strikes on him,
there's the split concern too. There's the split concern where he's got pop from the right side, but the hit tool is not nearly as good from the right side.
Yeah.
And that's why he got the promotion from Salem to Portland, is he figured out how to hit right-handed in high A.
Well, and that was the thing. I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier, like the warts we're talking about. So, like, Moncada, yes, he's a top prospect in all of baseball, but there are things he needs to work on. Kopech, same thing. Is he a starter for sure? Basabe, can he hit? Victor Diaz, he's had like 2 good months.
Right.
It's like
right. Well, Diaz is the perfect 4th guy in a deal.
Oh, I almost wrote that in the write-up. I was talking about he fits exactly what they throw in trades. Guys like Juan Rodriguez, Frank Montas, that's exactly the type of player that gets added to a trade. What's his name? Roman Mendez. Like, they've traded that type of player a lot of times before. But it's just, if you had told me, I was talking about I was talking with someone earlier about what they would give up, and every possible scenario we came up with included one of Rodriguez, Swihart, or Benintendi.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to get it done without them, I think, is impressive. And
I think it's very impressive.
I think that, I don't really have an issue with the trade at all, actually.
The only issue, and I would say this about both trades, and it's something I've mentioned on here before, again, one piece coming back. Where's the consulting with your Brewers guy? Where's the consulting with your White Sox guy and saying, hey, give me a name that I can get them to throw in that won't gum up the works on the trade?
Yeah, where's the 20-year-old left-hander who had a 6 ERA, but you saw throw like one good inning? Yeah.
Where's their maybe not Victor Diaz, but where's their like Yancori Pimentel?
Well, and that's part of building depth, and I think that's why I think you mentioned on Twitter that like the Joel Hanrahan trade, they got Brock Holt thrown in.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know that he was thrown in, but it's that
second
guy.
Piece. Yeah, and that's part of why. I mean, they're going to have to sign a lot of like organizational players to fill these holes because they just don't have enough players right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to need to sign at least two infielders for Pawtucket, it looks like, unless they're planning on starting. Well, I guess Jansen Whitty should be at third base, but
Mike Miller will start too. But
yeah, Mike Miller, they're okay starting him too. But they will sign depth for the infield in AAA. They might even. I mean, they signed a catcher that's going to be in AA, and Jake Depew.
Nice name, but I think whereas this trade, the first trade, the sale trade, kind of has the star power in it. The depth issue is more kind of what you see from the Thornburg trade.
Oh, a transition.
There you go. Exactly.
Good
so
work.
do you want to? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the Thornburg trade. Apparently, Dombrowski said they made an offer to Koji Uehara last week. Did he say?
I think he said they hadn't heard back from him.
And he said he wasn't ready to commit yet, knowing that the Red Sox were probably going to move on. And he said they went ahead and the Brewers approached them about Travis Shaw, which I would jump on that as well.
Yes, I mean, so we haven't said it, but the trade was Tyler Thornburg for Travis Shaw, Mauricio Dubon, and Josh Pennington. No,
I said it at the top. I thought maybe not.
No,
okay.
No. So I think that trade too. I mean, that's a depth trade. That's I don't think any of those guys are like first division everyday types. But, with Shaw, you had a very respectable, solid bench bat who could play first base, third base, maybe an outfield in a pinch, hit righties, platoon guy. Mm-hmm. And then Dubon, super utility, probably not a starter. Maybe could have done it, handled it, for 50, 60 game stretch if someone got hurt. But could have been like a Brock Holt type, able to play second, short, third in the outfield positions.
Yep.
And then Pennington, again, is a lottery ticket reliever, most likely, who far away, but that's a great scouting find by Ray Fagnet. They're the Northeast area guy, someone they signed for $90K, who blew out his shoulder, who made 3 starts, I think, his senior year. And luckily enough, Pennington, he made 3 starts his senior year. Most Northeast area scouts never saw him that spring because of that. But I think Ray did and kept on the kid, and they got him. And, he turned in this year with Lowell. He was pretty impressive. He's someone who was up to the high 90s with his fastball, had a little feel for his breaking ball. Changeup was a work in progress, but, he's someone who you could kind of dream on maybe as a relief type. Mm-hmm. So those are the type of guys that fill out a system, and now they're gone too. So, you kind of had both worlds impacted today. You had the depth guys and the high end guys, and now you're kind of left with this mishmash of 3 elite players.
Of that glut of relief pitchers we've talked about in kind of that 18 to 30 range of our rankings, I think Pennington and Diaz are probably the 2 I was highest on.
Of the righties. Yeah.
Maybe except for maybe Isla.
Isla's the only one, just because he's a lefty, he throws 98. But of the righties, definitely.
You've got, who else is in there? Chandler Shepard, Yancori Pimentel, Jake Cosart. I mean, it's not by a lot.
No, it's thin margins, but
yeah, and I don't know that I ranked them that way, but I think if we were to re-rank them tomorrow, I probably would have had them both higher.
Well, they're 2 of the younger guys too.
That's true.
Pennington was only 20 versus a lot of the other guys are 21, 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, and then again with that trade, I mean, I Thornburg is exactly where the game's going. You need multiple late inning power relievers.
Yeah, we should talk a little bit about more Thornburg too. So he's 28, posted 2.15 ERA, 13 saves, and 12 strikeouts per nine in 67 appearances last season. He was the setup man, but then took over as closer after Jeremy Jeffress was dealt to Texas at the deadline. Uses a lower arm slot, power pitcher. I should probably look up his arsenal on Brooks Baseball. But in 2014, he partially, I want to say, tore his UCL.
I read that he had a PRP injection instead of getting Tommy John.
He had a platelet-rich plasma injection instead of Tommy John, and he's been fine for 2 seasons. So there is that there, but that said, I think he's more or less kind of shown that he's okay from that, in theory. And he's only in his first year of arbitration this year. Apparently, I think I saw Alex Spear tweet that he's going to make about $2.2 million is the projection for him this year.
Yeah, he's got. This is his first ARB year, right?
This is going to be his first ARB year.
Yeah, so he's another guy's under control for 3 years.
Right.
At relatively low cost, so fits the MO.
Right. So, let's bring up his player card here. Velocity and movement. Okay, so he throws this is according to Brooks Baseball, 4-seam fastball around 92 to 94, a sinker used rarely in kind of the low 90s, but change-up curveball. Change-up is 81 to 84, 85, actually later in the year. Sorry, I'm looking at years ago. Doesn't throw the sinker anymore. 4-seam fastball is 94 to 96. Changeup is actually up in the high 80s now. It's about 86 to 87, 88. And then he throws a curveball that's like 79 to 80 miles per hour, somewhere around there. So 3-pitch pitcher. I like it. He'll take over the 8th inning for the Red Sox. And then, at the end of the year, you're looking at a Kimbrel, Thornburg, Carson Smith, Joe Kelly, maybe Matt Barnes back of the bullpen.
It's interesting how it's shifted from. Remember, we always talked about how they just don't have hard throwing relievers. You got 5. You just listed 5 guys who are going to be 95 plus from the right side.
Plus?
Yeah, he's like up to 97, 98.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So you got 5 guys right there who were mid to high 90s from the right side, which is we know what Dombrowski loves is hard throwing righties, but it's something that again the system didn't really have, and Dombrowski's gone out and gotten it one way or another by hook or by crook. He's acquired Thornburg, Kimbrel, and Smith in the last year. So, it has the makings. Again, it's exactly what they needed. They needed to replace the Koji Ziegler role, especially with Kimbrel had the injury last year and he had some struggles. And Barnes was kind of inconsistent at times. Smith, who knows, he's coming back from the DL. Kelly looked pretty good in the relief role, but at the same time, who knows with him. So getting an established reliever like Thornburg, granted he's had one good year, but he was very good last year, seems like a good move, especially when they didn't have to give up anyone of impact, really.
Well, and I think the headliner, that's a good transition to where I was going to go next, Travis Shaw. And I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, well, the Red Sox will now be placing their faith in Pablo Sandoval at third base. And I just got to say, I had Travis Shaw third on the depth chart at third base, and I had him well behind both Sandoval and Holt. He had a shot last year. He didn't hit from May 1st on.
He hit like 217 or something, right? Or 207.
Yeah, he had his opportunity. He was fine defensively, but it wasn't like he was Scott Rowland over there, or
he was.
He wasn't Frank
he was
Robinson.
Solid. Yeah, no, he was like fine. A 55 defender.
Yeah, or Brooks Robinson. Sorry, I always get the two of them mixed
not
up.
Frank.
Yeah, Frank. Sorry, Frank was the guy. Okay, yeah, Brooks is the guy I was thinking of. He was fine, but to me, I would have been stunned if he went in opening day as the first baseman on this club. To me, he was the bench corner infielder / you would want to try and maybe work him in a little bit in left field, perhaps. Although with this roster, they didn't need to because that's what Chris Young does. So I guess it makes sense to trade him, especially if a team thinks he can start in the majors. I'm intrigued to see what Milwaukee does with him, whether they're going to put him at third base or first or what, or both. I guess the NL, that versatility is going to be a lot more useful,
Yeah.
especially if they're going to play him more. But I don't think this changed anything. I think it was really clear. When they moved Moncada to third base last year and when they put Brock Holt there during the playoffs, Shaw was not going to be this team's starting third baseman unless something really changed.
Yeah,
So
and
I was surprised to see so many people saying that this changes anything, because I really didn't think it did.
well, I mean, I've seen Sandoval play recently. Like I saw him play. I saw him get 20 something at bats during instructs, and I mean, I think obviously he gets a bad rap because he showed up out of shape. You can't argue that his first year he was terrible, but this guy was. I mean, he was an all-star level player. Like we're not talking about some scrub. Like this is someone who they valued enough to give, what was it, 5 years, 90 million, I think.
Even though they maybe shouldn't have, but still.
But still, he got big money. And when I saw him in instructs, I mean, he was obviously in better shape. Like he looked like he'd lost probably.
595, by the way. Sorry. 595.
He looked like he'd lost, 20, 30 pounds, whatever. And I mean, the bat speed was there, which is something that wasn't there in the past. And I wonder how much the shoulder injury played into that. But because he was hitting the ball hard. He wasn't driving, wasn't hitting home runs every at bat or anything like that. But, he was making solid contact, and just seeing him out there, he looked more comfortable at the plate. And I think that it's too soon to write him off, and just, you can't, decide that that's a sunk cost already, especially given, again, not to go back, harp on it again, but the CBA, that's a lot of money tied up in him that you don't want to just write off as a sunk cost yet. You need to see what you have with that. And between him and Brock Holt, I'm just looking at the projected roster. They have a pretty balanced roster right now. I kind of like how the bench construction too.
Yep.
Because you've got now Moreland and Sandoval as the quote unquote starters. You have Brock Holt, who will probably maybe I'd say he'd probably play more than a utility guy. He'll play split at bats with Sandoval.
He'll be Brock Holt.
Exactly. And then you got Chris Young, who's the bench outfielder who can fill in at DH. Do some stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him a first baseman's glove in spring training. That would not shock me at all. To get him some reps there.
Interesting, yeah, because they don't really have a back. Well, I guess the backup first baseman is Hanley.
Brock Holt or Hanley, yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if they gave Chris Young some reps there, or Hernandez. And where does Travis Shaw fit in that? He's not going to play over Brock Holt, and he's not going to play over Chris Young he's not going to hit lefties, so that's Chris Young. And against righties, you're going to play Holt. So it's like, especially after the rumors about Moreland yesterday, it makes sense that they deal Shaw.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's kind of clearing the decks, too, that if Sam Travis hits next year to start the year in Pawtucket, I would not be surprised at all to see him up at the big leagues at some point halfway through the year, because a combination of him, Moreland, and Hanley splitting time between first base and DH could be a pretty solid trio right there.
Yeah, that actually wouldn't be a bad idea. I like that. I like that. It kind of gives Travis the space to come back from the injury, show what he can do. Is the Moreland deal 1 year? I just realized I have no
1 year,
idea.
$5 million.
Well, there you go. I mean, I think that's it.
Yeah.
You know what? That's probably why they went the way they did.
Yeah.
Honestly, because we know that they were interested in Beltran, didn't get him. I don't know if they were pursuing Matt Holliday or not, but they obviously, he signed with the Yankees, and I know they had at least talked with Napoli. But Napoli probably wants more than a 1 year deal. So I wonder if they were just kind of looking for that transitional guy to see if Sam Travis can step up and take over that role next season.
Well, yeah, and even if it's not an everyday role, a platoon because Moreland kills right-handed pitching, but he struggles against lefties. And so if you're platooning a platoon of Travis and Moreland, something that could be very effective, especially too because Moreland is a much better defensive first baseman than Hanley Ramirez or even Travis Shaw. I think he was you said Gold Glove. And Travis is
at first base this year.
And Travis is a solid first baseman also. So, that's between what they've got up at the big league level right now, and then they do have depth, it seems. They don't have a lot of depth overall, but they have depth at the positions where there's potential openings at the big league level, if that makes sense. They have a first baseman option for the next couple of years. They have Swihart at catcher, and then they have Devers at third base.
Well, and Vasquez. I mean, Sandy Leon...
Too,
You ride that train till it stops, but
which is probably now. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Although he's apparently going to be on the Team Venezuela roster for the World Baseball Classic in the spring. So
yeah. So I mean, I think that overall, I mean, yeah, if you're a Red Sox fan, the team is better than it was yesterday. You have arguably one of the top rotations, or not arguably, you have one of the top rotations in all of baseball now. And it's interesting too because they've positioned themselves for another trade as
right. Well, that's
again.
where I was going to go too.
There's too many starting pitchers here.
Well, they had 6 before the Sale trade.
Yeah.
And so, the Sale trade gives them 7. Even before the Sale trade, there was a question of where they were going to shop Clay Buchholz or not. Now it seems really obvious that they're going to shop a starting pitcher. And in theory, it seems like the Major League roster is done, right? I mean, unless something really falls into their lap, the Moreland acquisition cements your 25 man or something close to it, with a couple of spots to be worked out depending on health. But right now in the rotation, your top 3 is Sale, Price, and Porcello. Sale and Price being left-handers. Behind them, you have some combination of 2 of the 4. Of left-handers, Drew Pomerantz and Eduardo Rodriguez, and right-handers, Stephen Wright and Clay Buchholz. They're trading one of those 4.
Yeah.
Buchholz would seem to be the one that everyone thinks that will be traded.
Yep.
It would make plenty of sense. He's on a fine contract for as a 1-year rental. Why the heck not? If you can get him for cheap, if you're another team, right?
Yeah. I think too that it kind of by process of elimination you'll end up with him being the one, because I don't think you can trade Pomerantz. You're not going to get anywhere near the value you got for him, and it just optics wise, it's a terrible look. To trade him,
that they're definitely not going to move.
And then Rodriguez, the strides he took in the second half, he started to look more like, I think they got blown away maybe, but he took significant strides in the second half to kind of look more like the guy he was in 2015. Mm-hmm. And he's got upside still. We're talking about, what is he, 23? Yeah, he's 23. 23-year-old left-hander who, if when we saw him, saw maybe a number 2, number 3 starter, best case. So I don't think it's him. And I think Stephen Wright fits perfectly in a swingman role. He as a knuckleballer, he's someone, if they're getting blown out in the 5th innings, Rodriguez gets bombed, bring him in to pitch the last 4 innings, close the game out. Someone needs to get a start skipped, Stephen Wright starts. He seems like someone who would be a perfect swingman, last guy.
He's also a guy that almost started the All-Star game.
Yeah, but you can't start 6 guys.
That's true.
So.
I mean, to me, here's my hot take. I think you explore trading Eduardo Rodriguez, and the reason being is because of those 4 guys, you are getting by far the most return for him. By far, it's not even close.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But
right?
I mean, the thing is,
you've got 4 left-handers in this rotation. Right, you've got Sale, you've got Price, you've got Pomerantz, who we agree isn't going anywhere, except for maybe the bullpen, frankly. But
yeah.
I don't want them to trade him. I would love to see him stick around and blossom into that, top of the line starting pitcher that we were just talking about is not close in the minor leagues right now. The only guy you have that projects for anywhere near Rodriguez's potential is Groom, and he's a solid 3-4 years away, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Taking it one level at a time, he's 5 years away. Right? I mean, he was Greenville this year, Salem, Greenville in 2017, Salem in 18, Portland in 19, Pawtucket in 20. He's not up till 2021.
Yeah.
So that's the strongest argument to me for keeping Rodriguez around. But depending on what you can get,
32 also.
What's that?
Stephen Wright's 32. We're not talking about a spring chicken here.
Oh, I know.
So, yeah.
But,
I know
that said, you could find a team maybe that wants... I mean, what's Wright's contract situation? Let me pull up the...
Probably ARB eligible.
He... First of all, Stephen Wright is the 3rd longest tenured guy on the 40-man.
He's not even ARB eligible either.
That's terrifying. And no, he's not even ARB eligible yet. So he's got control of it for 4 more years.
Yeah.
They've got... what's... Looking at this really quick... They've got control of everyone but Clay Buchholz and Chris Young and Fernando Abad through 2018. And then after 2018, you're losing, Pomerantz.
No, Tazawa's gone, right? Oh, no, he's a free agent right now.
He's a free agent right now, yeah.
Oh, wow.
After 2018, you lose Kimbrel, you lose Pomerantz, you lose Robbie Ross, you lose Joe Kelly.
Yeah.
But that's it.
And so really, Price has the opt-out, too.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And he's probably going to exercise it, one would guess.
Yeah.
But I just, yeah. Oh, we got to tell Mike that optional waivers aren't a thing anymore.
Yeah, we'll edit that part out. But I think it's interesting because I think, as you said, they're probably done with additions. I just did the math, and they're at, based on the guys we have firmly projected on the 25-man roster right now, they're at 26, and that includes the extra.
That's why we're saying they need to trade a starter.
But the question is then, like, if you're trading someone like Eduardo Rodriguez, what are you asking for? That's
prospects. The prospects you don't have.
I guess
that's how you restock the system, and that's what I'm saying. For Eduardo Rodriguez, you can get 2 or 3 good prospects. You can get a couple of top 100 prospects, I would guess, right?
He'd probably be one of the top 5 pitchers available on the market if they.
Eduardo Rodriguez, now that Rich Hill has signed, Eduardo Rodriguez is the best starting pitcher available on the market.
No, Chris Archer.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Beyond Archer.
Yeah.
Who else is available?
I'm trying to think.
Jorge De La Rosa?
People were talking about like Anthony DeSclafani as someone who teams were very interested in, and I would take Rodriguez or DeSclafani in a heartbeat.
Sure.
It's funny because DeSclafani was actually drafted by the Red Sox. People forget that.
Out of high school.
They could probably get a lot for him. But I mean, I think the question is, it's what do they value? Do they value having two? Do they care that there's 4 left-handers in the starting rotation? Because if you don't, I mean, on talent alone, I would take Rodriguez and you just run with it and then use Wright, as I said, and then trade. But if you are thinking
is your number, I guess he's your number 5, but
it's probably your 4. Palmer is probably your 5, but if you're thinking about in terms of restocking the farm system, that is a way to do it, especially considering, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the next podcast, the new CBA rules have changed the international game and the draft again. So it's going to be
teams don't even know where to spend money anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be more difficult to add talent. You can't just go out and buy guys like Moncada anymore.
Nope.
So it's going to be.
We should also mention there's a player to be named later or Cash going to Milwaukee, which will likely be Cash. If it's a player, it's going to be no one of import, one would assume. Usually that means it's like an org guy, like, hey, we need a shortstop in low A. Send us a guy.
Because they changed the rules where the player to be named used to be how you would trade draft picks from the draft that year.
Well, not always, but sometimes, yeah.
Well, that was how Trey Turner was traded.
Right, but I'm saying, not
always.
Year, yes,
at this time of year, though, it sometimes was used as that. But yeah.
Right.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I'm not opposed to your idea. I would definitely float Rodriguez out there and see what you can get.
I think you have to, because you're not going to get anything for Drew Pomerantz right now because of his elbow. I don't think you're going to get. I mean, maybe if you can get something for Stephen Wright, if a team thinks that he's that all-star pitcher that he was at the beginning of the year, and they're going to trade you for him for 4 years of that, even though, I mean, he's old, but he's a knuckleballer. Yeah,
and then Buchholz, you're getting you get probably a solid B, C+, B- prospect. I don't think you're getting much more than that given his cost.
Well, they got Isla for Alejandro Diaz.
Well, that's what I mean. That's like a B- prospect.
Well, but I mean, who would you like more, Buchholz or Daza?
Yeah. What was the Jake Peavy return? What was the Jake Peavy return? They got Edwin Escobar and Heath Hembry.
Yes.
Right. Something like that.
That's the
type of deal I would expect.
I think that's probably fair.
Yeah.
Fair, and it doesn't sound great because of the fact that Escobar washed out and
Hembry was solid last year.
Yeah, Hembry was solid. I think I think that they'll find a way to keep him on the roster this year, though we've got him fighting for a roster spot. I think you've got, the bullpen next year, it's Kimbrel, Thornburg, Kelly, Ross, Barnes, and then 2 out of, assuming they trade, well.
No, because Carson Smith will go on the 60 days, so you can keep all those guys.
Huh?
Because right now we have 2, 4, 6.
Well, I'm working my
8.
way through the bullpen.
Okay.
Just work with me, Ian.
Yes.
Kimbrel, Thornburg, Kelly, Ross, Barnes are more or less locks.
Yes.
In theory, your sixth starter, assuming health,
Yeah.
is your sixth guy in the bullpen, and then you've got a battle between Abad, Hembry, Elias, Robbie Scott, long shots like Kyle Martin, Chandler Shepard, Noe Ramirez, but it won't be any of them. Brandon Workman. Does Workman have options?
I
Workman has 2 options remaining. Yep, so he starts in the minors. Almost
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah.
Given the roster crunch, but Abad probably as a left-hander has the inside track on that last spot, but I think you'd like to keep Hembry around if you can.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think he's someone you keep around in camp, and if you have to, you deal him right before the waiver deadline or something.
Right.
So yeah.
What else? Is there anything else, Ian?
We just had questions, Twitter questions.
Oh, questions. Good Lord. Well, we have email questions too. Let's start with email.
Let's do it.
Okay, our first email is from Michael. He says, with the big trades having happened, he said this at 2:00. Was the Moncada deal or the sale deal done by then? I guess he said trades.
Yeah, it was.
Are the Red Sox basically done as a top minor league system for the foreseeable future? My personal opinion is that these are good trades for the Red Sox, but it also feels like this might be the end of an era since most, if not all, of the advantages the Sox used to build a strong system are gone. What say you? Sounds good to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's very well put.
Yeah.
Like Ian alluded to, you can't go and spend a ton of money on international guys. You can't spend a lot of money on the draft. Basically, the way the CBA, and again, without getting into it too much, the way the CBA is structured is basically structured to favor teams that receive revenue sharing, and teams like the Red Sox got hosed, for lack of a better word, I would say.
Yeah, because those revenue sharing teams, they get extra picks, they give up less if they sign players.
Extra international money.
Yeah. So I think the one way you could kind of, it seems, the one loophole is you can acquire more international money, but even in that, though, it's not like
it's not even that much.
So that's why I think it was so important too that this last year they got Jason Groom.
Yep.
That's the type of talent that they're not going to be able to add to the system anytime soon, most likely.
Right.
And it's why I think they were so hesitant. Dombrowski talked about it, why they're not really making a big push for someone like Encarnacion yet, is having to give up those picks next year is a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Even more now. So,
yep.
Yeah.
They need those picks. But great question, Michael. Our next question is from frequent emailer Lendell. And he writes, with Moncada traded and Sandoval an unknown at this point, do you think Rafael Devers could be a AA to majors player like Benintendi if he hits well during the first half? I personally doubt he gets to the majors this year, but interested in hearing the odds since third has opened up a bit more. Also, do you think a starter will get traded to create more depth in the high minors? With Buckholzer right as the main trade chips in my mind. Thanks, guys. We already kind of addressed the second half of that, I think. But with the first part, while I know we agree on the answer, I think it is more of an interesting question than it would seem.
I don't think so, but
right.
If I will say that Devers is the kind of guy who, if he adjusts quickly to AA, he's just going to rake.
Yep.
He's that type of bat, and I think I think he's a slow starter, if I remember correctly. I want to say he got off to a really slow start in Salem last year. And you got to remember, he just turned 20. So he's going to be playing his entire 20-year-old year in AA. Mm-hmm. In Portland, it'll be his first time starting in a cold weather environment. So he most likely will get off to a slow start. But, you never know. And he's got the type of bat that if, they decide they need it, they've shown this year, they're willing to be aggressive if they think you can help the big league team. So
Sure. Yeah, I don't think there's any chance, honestly. I think he's the type of guy that's going to need a full year in AA and AAA. The AA to majors jump that, like, for example, Benintendi made, those guys, there's a reason Benintendi is a top 5 prospect in the game. There's a reason that even Yoan Moncada, who made that jump and failed, is a top 5 prospect in the game. Given how young Devers is, I mean, when his birthday is in October. So he
just turned 20.
He's going to be a true 20 years old all
Yep.
season.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very surprised if they added him to the roster before they needed to. Unless, I mean, because let's put it this way. If something goes wrong with Sandoval and Holt being as your third baseman, I don't think they're not going to wait around for Devers, right, at the beginning of the year.
No, you'd go to Marco Hernandez, or you'd go out and trade for someone.
You're going to trade for someone. Right. So, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them spend some money on a good minor league free agent third baseman, honestly.
I would agree.
Just to be kind of the insurance there.
Yep.
It's well, I mean, we'll see how that works out. I mean, I think at this point they trust Brock Holt enough that they would, trust him to run with the position for a while if Sandoval falls on his face again. But
yeah, they
I don't think Sandoval's going to. Yeah, but I also have no problem with Sandoval getting the job to start the year, even if he has like a bad camp or something, which you could see him doing, having not played in a year, basically.
Yep. You got to give it time.
I'm giving Sandoval till midseason, honestly.
Yeah.
I think
Devers is someone you don't want to rush. You take your time with him.
No,
it's a good question.
It's the youth, but it's a very good question. Thank you for that. And then our next email question comes from Chris in Nashville. And he says, when I look at your projected 2017 Pawtucket lineup, given that Blake Swihart and Sam Travis are coming back from injury, I'm not sure there are any position players I'd consider calling up in case of injury early in the season. Am I underestimating our AAA guys, or do you expect the Red Sox to load up on 4A guys to rebuild that depth? I'm assuming you don't think they'd address depth concerns by fast-tracking AA guys, right? I think Chris heard our answer to the last question. Yeah, so that's from Chris in Nashville. So for the people listening, the current projected AAA lineup that we have is Blake Swihart catching, Sam Travis at first, minor league free agent signees at second and third, although I think they're going to start Jansen at Whitty at third base, actually. Devin Marrero at shortstop, an outfield of Allen, Craig, Rusney Castillo, and Nure Tavares, and then, again, the DH is Jansen Whitty, although I think, you could insert minor league free agent there. The bench is Jake Romanski, who I think will get a decent share of time behind the plate, and I think he might actually start in Double-A. Just that he's playing it, and then share that with Jordan Procession. But anyway, Mike Miller, who I think could start at second base, and we saw him this past year. Ryan Court, who they re-signed after signing him in the middle of last season to play in Portland, and Cole Sturgeon, who I think is just organizational outfielder type guy. You'd like to be able to call a couple of those guys up. I mean, it would be one. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to call Allen Craig and Rusney Castillo up under this CBA, actually? Maybe you don't.
I don't think you can because of the money. Like, literally.
Maybe you can't.
Castillo's would be, you'd have to put $10 million on the count towards the cap. So
maybe you can't. I mean, Nure Tavares, I actually got a very good report on out of the Dominican recently.
He was someone. And that's, I mean, we kind of, it's going to go unnoticed, but like this is where someone like Henry Ramos, who just signed with the Dodgers as a minor league free agent, could be like of interest, or would have been a nice piece to still have in the system.
Yeah.
But right now it's kind of, as you said, it's Tavares or bust. So they definitely need to go out and get a few more guys.
I saw an interesting suggestion, I think, on our forum, Ian, with Blake Swihart. They said he's going to go into the year as a catcher. I think that's correct. I think that's what they should do. But could you see a situation mid-season? I think this is basically what happened, was it last year? Or maybe the year before, I think, where Sandy Leon turns back into a pumpkin, Christian Vasquez isn't hitting. Or no, I'm sorry, opposite. Sandy Leon does not turn back into a pumpkin. He remains Sandy Leon. Christian Vasquez proves at least a capable backup, if not better. They're set at catcher. Pablo Sandoval falls on his face or gets hurt again. Brock Holt, playing every day, is not performing as well because he needs to, not be playing every day. Do you try Blake Swihart at third base? Temporarily.
I mean, he was a shortstop in high school, and
he's got the athleticism for it.
He's a good enough of an athlete, and he's got the arm. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'd still like to see him behind the plate. And I think that's where you turn to someone like Marco Hernandez first.
Yeah, I would like to see him get some run, frankly.
Yeah. I honestly think that by like May 1st, he's going to be the starting catcher. That's my prediction. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't think. I mean, Sandy Leon didn't hit it all in the second half of the year, and I don't think Christian Vasquez can hit enough to play 120 games a year. You play him 40 to 60 games a year, perfect. But at the end of the day, I still think Blake Swihart's the long-term catcher for this team.
Yeah, I agree. He is.
You need to let him go out there and work on his game defensively, and the only way he's going to get better is by catching every day.
Yep.
So,
yeah. I mean, I was talking with a at that time front office executive. Maybe I'm tipping off at least the short list of who it could be during the season. We were talking about a potential sale deal at the trade deadline, and he said, well, they're going to start by asking for either Betts or Bogarts, and we're not going to do that. So then who do you move down to next? And one of the guys he said was Swihart. So he's still very highly regarded in the organization. They're not ready to give up on him. I don't think they're ready to give up on him behind the plate either. So I'm inclined to agree, maybe not by May, but I'm inclined to agree that I think he could take over as the starting catcher this season. I think that's a good point. I think so. Thanks for the question, Chris, by the way. I think that's all of our... Oh, we got one more question. This is from Mike. He says, Chris mentioned on Twitter that 20 Sox players have been traded since Dave Dombrowski took over. What strikes me is not just the volume of the players, but the quality. Players like Moncada, Espinoza, Kopech, Basabe, Dubon, Margot, Guerra, and Allen were all not just top Sox prospects, but most were top 100 prospects in all of baseball. I actually disagree with that. I think your only top 100 prospects were Moncada, Espinoza. Kopech was a fringe. Kopech will be a top 100 prospect this year. Margot was, Guerra was, Allen was not, Basabe was and is not, Dubon was and is not. Anyway, trading that many of his system's top prospects seems like it's unusual, is it? Since you all have been involved with Sox prospects, has there been a similar period where so many top prospects are traded in such a short time frame? If not within the Boston system, are there examples in recent history of other teams trading so many top prospects seemingly all at once? Thanks for all the good work you do. Looking forward to the emergency podcast, Mike. Thanks for the question, Mike. Ian, I could not think of anything myself. I know there hasn't been in the Red Sox system. What?
I got one for another team. Okay. Texas at the deadline this year.
Ooh, yeah. Who'd they move? Brinson, Alfaro?
They did 3 trades. They did Beltran was Dylan Tate and someone else who was their first round pick. You're going to hear me typing while I look this up. Was Dylan Tate and someone else who was their first round pick last year. Then you had Alfaro, Jake Thompson. Who else is in that trade? Who was the other big prospect?
For the Phillies, Nick Williams.
Yeah, and then they traded Travis DeMeritt to Atlanta. They traded Brinson and Brett. Who was the other guys in that trade?
So the Jonathan Lucroy trade was
Louis Brinson and Luis Ortiz.
Okay, for Brinson, for Lucroy and Jeffress.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. On
that's
Twitter,
like 6 or 7 of their top 10 guys.
Yeah, on Twitter, senior staff writer James Dunn pulled out the 92-93 Blue Jays, who traded Jeff Kent, Ryan Thompson, Derek Bell, Steve Carsey, and Jose Herrera within a calendar year for Ricky Henderson, David Cohn, and Darren Jackson. I barely remember that. / maybe don't. But
I was 2.
Oh God, I hate you.
I got nothing on that one. I think there is precedent, but I don't think within the Red Sox system.
No, definitely not within the Red Sox system. Yeah. Definitely not recently. That's for sure. All right, let's look at our again. You can email us at podcast@soxprospects.com. We'll also take questions using the hashtag AskSP. And we got some today. So let's see. Well, we got a question 7 hours ago asking, do you guys think Dealin Dave is done from a trading prospects perspective? Clearly not.
Well, no, that was after the sale trade.
Was it?
Yeah.
What was he replying to? He was replying. Oh, that was after the sale trade.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I can't see what else he would trade prospects for.
I don't think any of. I mean, if it's going to, I think there might be a minor deal, but I don't think any of the Devers, Groom, and Benintendi or Devers and Groom aren't getting traded.
He says he's done with getting relief pitching. So
yeah,
That's the only thing I could see that maybe trying to move for. But
Yep.
yeah, I think they're done. That was from Sean. Our next question is from Reality Beaker.
Interesting name.
Beaker asks, No, Beaker asks, with the salary cap penalties bigger now, what is the Sox cap? Also, do Craig and Castillo not count against the cap if they're not on the 40? Craig and Castillo don't count against the cap if they're not on the 40-man. The Sox cap is the same as everyone's.
It's like 195 or something.
5, yeah. If he's asking, is there a hard cap? What I've heard is the hard cap is basically 40% above the CBT.
Yeah.
Basically, because at that point you're basically paying dollar for dollar on overage.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Gary. Gary says, is Eduardo Rodriguez a lock to be on this team? On opening day, Dombrowski acquired Pomerantz and inherited Erod. He's a nice chip on the trade market. I think we kind of dealt with that one. I think if I were to bet, I would say he is, but I think they should look into it, and I don't think it's nearly a sure thing as others might.
Yeah.
Let's see. And our last question is from Trevor. He says, are you surprised that all it took was minor league talent to land Chris Sale? I think we hit that, right?
We talked about that. I think the answer was yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very surprised. I think that's why it happened. I think that's
why it happened now and not during this regular season.
Right. Yeah, by the way, apparently before we started recording, the report was Wade Davis was close to being traded to the Cubs. Apparently the Nationals have stepped in, and it is no longer close. So he might
is hot.
The stove is piping hot. I'm actually going to be going over to National Harbor tomorrow to kind of see what's going on at the winter meetings. So maybe I'll have interesting things to report on the next episode of the podcast. So
interesting. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens over there. Hopefully I'll have some things to talk about with you guys that I can't talk about on the podcast. But at any rate, I think that closes it out for us, everybody. Thank you for downloading. Hopefully you found this informative. Sorry if we were a little sloppy, but like we said, this was very last minute.
Yeah.
We
were all over
kind of
the
throw
place.
This together. Yeah. I somehow had a productive day, which is good.
It's been a long day.
It's been a very long day. So, Ian, assuming we're done, my man, tell the people to follow him at Ian Cundall, IANCUNDALL. Follow me at SP Chris Hatfield, HATFIELD. Follow the site's account at Sox Prospects. This week's the Rule 5 draft. Ian, you think anyone gets picked?
Maybe Justin Haley?
Yeah, maybe Haley. I'm starting to wonder if Anuri Tavares might get picked.
Is he eligible? I thought he was not until next year.
He is. Nope, he is.
Oh, okay, yeah, there's a chance he gets picked too.
I think there's a chance he gets picked. Those are the two guys we're looking at. So.
And maybe Corey Pimentel. That's the third
I don't think he will.
I don't think so, but you never know.
Maybe. Yeah, who knows? I think if he does, he definitely gets returned.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree. And then I'll just say, watch the news page because we're going to have stuff coming. Trade analysis on both deals today, starting with the Sale deal, which is finished but will need be in editing. So probably up probably when you're listening to this, it will be up. Trade analysis of the other.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll depends when this goes up. Trade analysis of the Thornburg deal to some point. There's going to be, and then we're going to have some off-season stuff coming too. So stay on the news page. Don't bail on us just because it's the off season. We're going to start putting content out. Kind of a quiet November.
Going to start cranking. Yeah, we did have a little quiet November, but things are about to pick up. So for Ian, I'm Chris. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon talking CBA, talking maybe aftermath. Who knows? Who knows what will happen between now and then. But thank you all for listening. We'll be back at you soon.